Looks like we are live once again with another episode of the Manny Wolfe Show. My guest today is Stephen Bryant, who, among other things, let's just pull up his resume real quickly. Certified coach, trainer, speaker with the John Maxwell team. Are you the founder or a member of the Elite Mastermind, Stephen?
I am a founder of the Elite Mastermind.
Okay. Why don't you tell us what the Elite Mastermind is while I do a little bit of sharing out of this broadcast? I'll be looking down for just a second or two while you're sharing.
Okay, so the Elite Mastermind was something I came up with working with a coach that I came to know in Calgary-based, Sean Shuchuk, and asked if I wanted to get into this coaching and doing a mastermind. And so we worked on a name on that. So there was some help from Sean on that with the Elite Mastermind. And what it is just getting a group of people together and talk about some different subjects. One of the ones that we're doing is on leadership. So is getting together and just discussing some ideas of what they think leadership is and how I can help them. Again, part of that process is the Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich book. We've been going through, and some other things that I've learned from the Maxwell program on the value of leadership and connectivity with people.
So I think that a mastermind is an interesting place to kick off a discussion about leadership. The reason is that so many masterminds are so bad.
And that it's interesting you said it, Manny, because that was one of the things, one of the people that took part in that has said there's so many things that I spent too much money on. These masterminds that just didn't do anything for me at all. So again, one of the complaints was too high price for. In other words, the value wasn't there. The money that they paid and what they got out of it. And I think that's one of the key areas is, recognize your value, definitely, but give them the proper tools that bring value to what they've invested in. And I think a lot of times they don't, those who are trying to do masterminds just don't get it.
Well, I think it's become a very sort of a vogue kind of thing to offer if you're in the coaching space. I know a little bit about Sean. We are connected. Haven't had too much interaction, but I gauge that he's a serious professional.
Yes, he is.
Hopefully, I'm not wrong about that. You seem to be supporting that claim.
Listen, I've enjoyed my time with Sean. Sean, one of the things I like about Sean is he's taken a real interest in me. And one of the things that I asked Sean, I said, Sean, what is the interest in me? Because I want to know. I don't want to just go out and say, I'm this, this, and this. I said, Sean, I want to ask you a question. I said, why is it that you want to work with me? And he said, well, for one thing, he said, and I'll toot my horn only because he said it was, he said, Steve, you're a man of character. He said, you're easy to talk to. He said, you do a great job listening to people from what I see. And you just have this way about you. In fact, I was in my work, I work with a nonprofit organization that helps families in crisis, more specifically, women who are fleeing domestic violence. And we were doing a building project, and I was asked to come into the room to bring some information for the group. And one of the gentlemen that's probably only seen me once, one of the guys on the contract crew, he said, Steve, he said, there's something about you. He said that aura that you bring to a room when you enter it. And I said, well, thank you. But I went away just being blown away. This guy's probably seen me once, possibly twice. And to say that about me was just, it was mind blowing. But it was, it just brings back to, some of the things that, one of the things that Sean said and other things that people have said about me. So I take that and try to use it for the benefit of others.
Well, that's good. That's as it should be. I'm curious then, what you think the foundational elements and the expected, like, realistic outcomes of a good mastermind should be.
Well, I think, as people come into the mastermind, they're definitely looking for something that will add value to their life. But I think
Right.
part of what they should be taking away is a better sense of who they are
Hmm.
and what they're capable of. I try to instill some of the things that are really important as far as the leadership, and that will probably lead into what what I want
Yeah.
to talk about today
Yeah.
about the 4 L's of leadership. I think the key area, and again, this was another conversation I had with Sean in regards to um, my key area of leadership is you got to love people.
Hmm.
You got to love people unconditionally, and people are range of all different personality types, and some people are really hard to deal with, and
Yeah.
sometimes hard to get that um, some of these things into their head because they've got a preconceived notion of how things are,
Yeah.
but they're not successful in what they're doing, and really take time with people. And it's not I, I feel cookie as a lot of times there's a cookie cutter approach
Yeah.
to leadership or mentoring, is that one
Yeah.
size fits all, and it doesn't. It just doesn't do it. I think one of the things you've got to do is you love people from what as you meet them where they are, and hope to, as they're coming to you for advice and coming to you for what can I do, just take that time. And some people are easy to deal with. Other people are just really hard and difficult to deal with.
This is very true.
But at the end of the day, and bringing Sean back into the equation, we had that talk, and he said after he spoke on stage, when this guy came up to him, he said, "Sean," he said, I don't understand it." He said, I tried this, tried that, and so on. And Sean says, "I got to ask you a question." He says, "Do you love people?" And the guy says, "Actually," he says, "I don't. I can't stand people." He said, "I don't know I don't know what you're doing in this business, but go find and do something else." So
Yeah.
um, so that's the first part. I think if you don't have a love for people, and loving people isn't always easy. We're dealing with, um, as I said, a very wide variety of people from all walks of life,
Hmm.
and you got to be patient with them. So it's again that love for people. I think that makes somebody successful. I attended John Maxwell certification program back about 4 years in Orlando, Florida, and one of the things that really impressed about John was, you get all these people coming on. There's a big hoopla, and everybody's, pumped up. And John kind of saunters on stage, and he said, "Forget about all the accolades." He said, I just want to say this to start with." He says, "My name is John Maxwell, and I want to be your friend." That was it. And then he went into, what he was going to talk about that day. So that was one of the things that really impressed me the most, is that for him is to make that connection with people first and foremost. Before I'm not trying to sell you anything. I just, I want to be a friend. I want to be somebody that can add value to your life, and help you along life's way, so to speak.
So while I like everything that you're saying, and I agree with the sort of the inherent value of it, I do want to go back a little bit to what are the things that, in your estimation, make a successful mastermind? Sounds like love of people is maybe the first one, right?
Yeah. I think one of the other things too is, as part of a teaching and a program, or whatever you want to call it, a mastermind,
Yeah.
is getting that input from people, because I could stand there and just spew out all kinds of information for them. But I think one of the things you got to do is get people talking, and talking about ideas, how they're feeling, what they want to accomplish. And I feel in a room once, I was in a room one time, we were talking about some really, I thought, were pretty simple things. But as you start talking about and find common ground with the next person or other people in there, that gets the conversation going. And then, you know, as a facilitator, you can say, oh, let's stop on that for a minute and just talk about this a little bit more. But a part of a mastermind is getting people to think on their own, to think about the ideas that have been talked about, to even collaborate with each other.
Sure.
And how can we make this happen with the two of us or this whole group together? So it's one of those ideas of getting everybody involved and creating a vision, looking forward to what they can do. And I think a lot of times people coming in, they want to do things, but they really don't have the tools or maybe the vision that may be lacking in what they want to do.
That's a big one. That place where you know you want to do something, you have some inkling, however perhaps subconscious, right? Subliminal.
Exactly. No, you're right.
When that point where you don't even have the vision yet, that is a really, really what's the word I want to use to describe that? Challenging, but it's more like it's different than that. It's oblique. It's just this. That it describes me for many, many years. You know, I just knew I was wanting to do something big, meant for something big, needing to swing for the fences and just not having any idea how or
and
what
I
to
think
do.
that's where a lot of people are, Manny, is that they just they've got this idea in their head and said, well, where do I take it? Or how do I manifest this vision? So
what do I do?
yeah, definitely. I know exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah. So then with you and Sean, am I right to assess that it's the kind of mastermind that is sort of true to Napoleon Hill's definition, where it's not masterminds of today seem to be more the promise of a specific outcome. And I think that to the best of my ability to gauge, they fail more often than they succeed. But Napoleon Hill's idea of a mastermind was, in a very real way, to surround yourself with high caliber people, and by doing so, raise your thought vibration.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. And in that state, that heightened state of raised thought vibration, obviously, since you're thinking better, newer, different things come about. Is that kind of what that's sort of it?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. These people that are coming in the mastermind have a purpose. They want to be a better person. They want to think better. They want to have a better vision of what's going on, and that's how you do it. And I think a lot of time with mastermind is that if you're investing in something, if it's free, then there's no real value to it. I'm not out to make millions of dollars in it. However, I do want to help them understand that there's value in it, and by putting money into it, that there's a commitment to that. You know, that's a good start in the sense that these people want something different, and they're willing to pay for it. It's not an end all type of thing, but it's something that they see value in. The first mastermind I led is that they thought, wow, this is going to be something really special, because going back to what you said before, Manny, was the fact that, many masterminds, they come into it expecting something and nothing happens.
Yeah.
It's not, or it doesn't meet the expectations of what. So I went through an outline of what I wanted to do, and they thought, wow, this is fantastic. So it's a matter of seeing there's something of value in here. There's something that, as you said before, is going to elevate my thought level. I'm going to start getting new ideas. I'm just going to really start focusing on this vision that might have been kind of, out in the stars somewhere. So it starts, narrowing this down to where, this is something that I want to take part in, something that's going to help me in the future. I think going back to one of the things that kind of sparked a thought in my head was, I love to hang around younger people. I just turned 62 last month. I don't feel 62. I love hanging. I love hanging around with a lot of younger people, and
Yeah.
it is interesting too. A couple of years ago, I met with a younger guy. He's probably 28, and then on the phone actually was talking with somebody. I said, "What is the biggest thing with millennials? You know, what are you looking for?"
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting that every single time I talked with different people is mentorship. They're
Mm-hmm.
looking for somebody that's going to come along beside them and say, "Hey, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
I want to help you. I want to be here for you." This is something that they feel that they've lacked through the years, even in college,
Yeah.
university, that there's that, if I could say, spewing of facts.
You could say that
But
on this show.
there's no mentorship. There's nobody that's
Yeah.
like a one-on-one type of person is going to come around and say, kind of put the arm around and say, "Hey, I'm here for you. What can I do for you? What can I help
Yeah.
you with? How can I, and it comes back to John again saying, "Hey, listen, I want to be a friend.
Yeah.
I want to be a help to you. I want to add value to your life."
I think that the idea that millennials, to paint with a broad brush, are more aware, again, to paint with a broad brush with both of those statements, about the importance of things like mentorship, it really kind of gives me hope and optimism for the future, and you certainly shouldn't expect to go into college and get mentorship, unfortunately.
No, I mean, but I think I think, and I may be totally wrong. I think as a generation that wants to have that one-on-one relationship with people.
Yeah, I agree. That is to say, I see more of it. I would go so far as to say my lens is skewed because everybody in my 5,000 friends list is a high achiever. But that having been said, I would go as far as to say there's just a higher level of self-awareness.
I think that's a good point. Yeah,
I really sit back and kind of scratch my head when I hear people complaining about millennials. The reason being is that having known so many of them and been mentored by many of them and have them as colleagues and as friends and as peers, and seeing how sharp the ones that are in my world are, seeing how driven, seeing how effortlessly they open themselves to lateral thinking. It's really interesting, right? So when somebody complains about how hard they are to deal with, I feel like you accidentally showed your cards a little bit. You know what I mean? It tells me more about you than them, right? Anyway, so leadership as an important abstraction, leadership as this principle. What is it to you? Like what is leadership at its essence to you?
Well, as I said, Manny, the first thing is that to be able to lead people, you got to love them, and part of that loving them is taking them where they are, and hopefully, as a leader, to mold and make them into something that that will help them in life, that will be an asset to those that they're around, that they can add value as well. And one of the things you said I picked up on, of course, being a baby boomer. There's a different thought process that goes. And the reason I like being around millennials is that, you said, the linear type thinking. And I'm learning a lot from that. And that kind of goes back to my, the 4 L's, is that I'm taking the time to listen to them. So that's the second. I'm listening to what they're saying, and I'm not, I'm not saying, "Oh, you're just a millennial," just dismiss everything about that. Listen, there are problems with each quote unquote generation.
Of course.
And we're people. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. There's a lot of the basic needs that we all, whether we're millennial or boomers or Gen X or Gen Z or whatever it may be. But in listening to their thought process, that broadens mine.
Yeah.
because I can kind of get stuck in my boomer type thinking, and it's not good. I went to a Bible college about 20, oh, actually, was now it's about 30 years ago. But one of the things is that I was taught, if you stop learning today, you stop leading tomorrow.
Yeah.
And even at 62, I've got so much more to learn.
Yeah.
And part of that is taking that time to listen. When I start listening to people, it's an amazing thing to pick up. Oh, geez, that's a different way of looking at things that I have never even thought of.
Right.
I spent a lot of time after leaving the pastorate and got into the nonprofit world, and actually worked with an organization here in Fort McMurray that provides services to the homeless. And there are a lot of indigenous people here in the city that take advantage of that particular organization that I was a part of. And so I was first hired as a Housing First coordinator. And what I did learn about indigenous people, very much so, it doesn't happen all the time, but when you're listening to them, there may be a pause. And with a lot of our thinking is the pause gives us an opportunity to, cut in and, tell them. And I remember doing that once and actually learning about it later, is that pause is just giving them a chance to gather their thoughts together for the next thing that they want to say. And I kind of butted in on this guy, and he said, wait. He says, I got more to say. And probably about 6 months later, I took this, actually a woman who's been in Hollywood that's from Fort McKay, which is close by, Holly Farche. And she does indigenous training, and she talks about the art of listening to indigenous people. And in fact, when they have that time together, they actually have a talking stick. And nobody talks unless you have that talking stick. And learning not to interrupt people, but to listen. And I've learned a lot about listening to people. I remember one time, actually, there was this guy actually came up into my office, and he went by the nickname of Penguin, but he just started opening up. And the reason being is I just asked him kind of some leading questions. And I said, what do you like to do? He says, I love to sing. I said, really? I said, what's your favorite song? And he said, Sad Songs by Elton John. I said, really? And then he just went into a full chorus of sad songs by Elton John, but that gave him great joy.
Yeah.
But it was just that time just to take the time to listen, to tell. And I remember one time, one guy says, nobody has ever listened to my story. And boy, that is a powerful thing for somebody to be able to share their story. That's who they are. That's their makeup. That's something that I think of as is of great value for somebody just to sit there and listen to somebody's story, because you gain so much insight from there. And I know I'm getting a little bit off topic, but it's that idea of being able to, I would call it the fine art of listening. That's how you learn how to lead people. As I said before, there's no cookie cutter approach to people. You gotta take time with the people that you want to lead.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to get the quote wrong, but Stephen Covey famously said, efficiency is fast with things and slow with people. Right? It's not exactly right, but I know I got the essence of the
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But that's good enough for me. I know where you're coming from.
Let's pull apart listening, because this is a subject I am deeply passionate about, deeply interested in. And I have my own take on it, which I'll be candid is very, very influenced by Covey and by virtually every public speaking class I could take in college, every communications class that I could get my hands on. But so most of us think of listening as hearing, right?
I would agree with you on that.
talk a little bit more about that for me? What does it take from your perspective to be the kind of listener that, I guess, that is also a leader?
Well, I think, Manny, one of the things is that you listen to learn. You don't listen to respond.
Mm-hmm.
I know the camera is freezing up, but can you hear me right now?
Yes.
Okay. So coming back to listening, one of the things I take from listening is when I listen to somebody, it gives me a perspective of who they are, what their wants are, what their needs are. Listening to maybe pull a little bit more out of, they may say something, but they may not, feel comfortable to share the whole thing. But if I can listen with an intent of asking maybe a leading question after I've listened, is to pull more information out of them if they're willing. And I think the approach is, again, that kindness, and that they sense your compassion and empathy for them, that they get that sense of, hey, this person really is interested in what I want to say. So again, it comes back to that listening with an intent of learning from them. And then from that learning to be able to, this is how I can help you. This is how I can bring value to your life.
Right.
So it comes back to that kind of dissecting that, what they're saying as to what are they true. It may not be just words, but what are they truly saying, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense to me, because there are at least two communications happening at all times, if not more. There's what's being said. Here's what I would propose. Here's what I would argue. There's the words being said. There's the understanding that most of us, most of the time, can't articulate exactly what we're trying to articulate, which is sort of a big thing to take on and to balance when you're trying to listen to someone. There's something more pure underneath than the words are articulating almost always. And then there's the part that I think is the most challenging for me, if I'm being candid, and certainly what we see a shortcoming of at a population level within social media, which is the willingness to be influenced by someone else.
Yes.
In other words, not a charismatic leader, not a guru, not a thought leader type person, but in conversation, true listening has a component in it of being open to shifting your perspective. And
I would totally agree with that, Manny. I think the one of the biggest things that can help a person, I mean, you go to part of my isogenics, being part of that organization, we went to Las Vegas. That was 2017. And the organization had paid for Tony Robbins to be there. Tony spoke for 4 hours, and I looked at my watch at the end of it. I mean, it was nonstop 4 hours. And I thought, usually after about half an hour, you're getting pretty tired of whoever's speaking. But he was very engaging. But as good as that was, I find the one-on-one or in a small group so much better, because you feel like you're a part of that whole process.
Yeah. How's our audio doing? Our camera seems to be having issues.
Are you there?
Yeah. How's the audio doing? The camera seems to be non-cooperative.
Yeah, I know. The audio is fine. I just missed maybe a second, a few minutes, a few seconds. As soon as I finished, I didn't know if you said anything, because then I had to put in my...
About Tony or any kind of charismatic stage presenter, and you'll know this because you do stage presentation. It's a different kind of communication, right? There's a two-way exchange happening, but it's not the same as conversation.
And, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And then with Tony too, while I, in my heart, do really like Tony and want to be sort of pro Tony, I guess, I can't escape the fact that he's a master hypnotist. He's a master of all these different modalities of how to shift your sort of perspective in a moment. And I guess just to take that one, isogenics meeting where they hired him and he spoke for 4 hours as an object lesson. I'm a little wary of anyone who's sort of that polished at high level stage presentation. Even though it's something I teach stage presentation, I teach public speaking, but I don't teach NLP. I don't teach hypnosis. I don't teach any of that stuff. My single sort of thing that I teach, which shows up differently for each person, is how to be totally transparent, totally in the moment, totally real.
Absolutely. I love that, Manny. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think go ahead.
Well, I was just wanting to editorialize on Tony specifically as it relates to communication and listening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a one. In many ways, it's just a one-way communication because he's speaking and we're listening, right. And there's no right. dialogue going on. Right. So I've spoken as a pastor. I've spoken at different events as an executive director with the organization I'm with, but to tell you the truth, man, I really enjoy the one-on-one because for me, I feel like I'm expressing more of myself because I'm listening to the person that I'm speaking with, and that way that can direct my conversation to them as well. Yeah. As opposed to public speaking, you got a set thing that you want to talk about, and that's that. So
yeah, exactly. No matter what level of authenticity and transparency you're able to create, there's still a certain level of a certain contrived quality to it, right?
Right.
One-on-one conversation or even small group. I think I've had this experience in intimate groups where you can create that environment where it's really communication of souls, not of egos, not of personalities. Boy, you really have to be ready to drop your own guard and really show up pretty much naked. But then when you do, the reward is what I think you keep referring to when you say that you like that one-on-one communication.
I do.
Yeah.
And I think
it's a beautiful, powerful thing in its own right.
It is. I like the way that you described it because you're basically naked. You're bearing your soul.
Yeah.
And I think people can connect with that because here's somebody that's being, even though they're leading the group or leading the discussion, they're vulnerable, and people can see it. And it goes back to that guy before. Somehow, some way, this guy that I'd only seen twice picked up on I guess if you could call the aura that I presented.
Right.
He said,
sure.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So as we sort of come to the time here, since it was ostensibly about leadership, what's your 1,000-foot view on what's missing in leadership today?
I think too many people, they've got into leadership. Let me backtrack on that. I think there are too many people that profess or say that they're leaders when they really aren't.
Yeah.
So I think that has kind of muddied the waters for a lot of people as to, who do I really, or who should I really be following as a leader? I think too many people, and again, before I went into pastoral training, I was working as a store manager in a retail grocery chain in the state of Maine.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw too many people, their work ethic was second to none.
Yeah.
And they were put into leadership positions based on the fact that they worked well.
Right.
But they didn't know how to lead people. I think that's evolved since the mid 80s when I was involved with that. I think they see that there was that leadership vacuum that was being created. And it goes back to that. So there's a leadership vacuum in a lot of places today. I think that's one of the issues that a lot of organizations, companies are facing. They've got to, they've got to come to grips with what leadership really is all about, and maybe kind of taking a second look at it.
Agreed. Specifically back in the 80s, corporate and retail and sales and those sort of mega industries, they didn't really have a distinction between management and leadership, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfectly put.
You work really hard. You've got a second to none work ethic. And without telling you anything about what leadership is, they put you in a role where you're in charge of others. And so what you do is you just apply that same work ethic to others. And I remember that very, very clearly during that time in my life. Where can we go to find out more about you, Stephen?
Okay, so I am on Facebook, and to tell you the link, I wouldn't know what to tell you.
Why don't we do
but
that?
you can find me on Facebook. I'm the guy standing by a 2003 Ford Thunderbird and Hawaiian shirt. I'm on Instagram as PastorMan007.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a LinkedIn profile as Stephen Bryant. You'll see me with a John Maxwell logo in back of me. Where else am I? I'm on Twitter as sbryant007. And then I also have I'm a freelance photographer, so I also have a photography page on Facebook, Stephen Bryant Photography.
What we'll do is we'll get those links from you to put in the show notes.
Sounds great to me. I'll get those for you.
All right.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Thank you so much for coming on today. I've really appreciated your perspectives on leadership and masterminds.
I appreciate you having me, Manny. It was good talking with you, and wish you all the best.
Thank you, sir.
All right.